So tonight I am wondering, what is the best piece of advice you ever got? What is the best piece of advice that you ever received? Or to phrase it a different way, what is the wisest, smartest, most powerful thing that anybody has ever told you? My guess is, for some of us, they're going to be seated around us or close. A husband, a wife, a mom, a dad, good friend, teacher, grandparent, maybe even a Sunday school class friend, Sunday school class teacher, maybe somebody in a pew behind you or in front of you. When I try to remember the best piece of advice that I've got, I remember my dad. I was about, an early teenager. We grew up in Dallas. I grew up in Dallas, and my dad decided in August in Dallas that he wanted to plant a new row of shrubs in front of the house. And I, just like the Hebrew slaves to the Egyptians, did I say something funny? Was to help him. And my dad pulled out something I had not seen before and certainly not worked with. He brought this manual post hole digger. Do y'all know this thing? If hell has a hardware store, this baby's in it. Stab, squeeze, pull, drop, 3 grams of dirt. Stab, squeeze, pull, drop. Boom, 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 boom. It's hot in Dallas in August. And we got about halfway through the row, and I hadn't said anything. I wasn't complaining. I wasn't being a disobedient son. But after halfway down the row, I had some things I wanted to say. I was thirsty. I was hot. This is not a preteen idea of how to spend a Saturday morning, right? And so I looked at my dad and said, I've been good all this way, half the way down the row. Can I go in and get a glass of water and cool off? Haven't I done enough? To which my dad looked at me square in the eye and said, only the dead have done enough. I was digging for a response. My brain was kicking in. I was looking. I was a smart aleck. Still am. I was digging for a response, but I couldn't find it. And the wisdom of it somehow sunk in. That's something I can't argue with. That's something I can't disagree with. I've got to take it as truth. So I picked up that wretched post hole digger and began the second half, right? I've told my kids that. They hate that line. We had a cellist at the Houston Symphony, or with us, who worships with us, First Methodist Houston. He was here for our first Christmas Eve service. He comes to me after the service and says, Pastor Andy, that's the greatest line ever. I can't wait to share it with my kids. They're going to hate you forever. And I said, I know. But the truth of it comes, we become aware of it in time. My mother is a good cook. She's a great cook. And one day, I was, as a kid, over her shoulder, and I was watching her make a pie crust. And my mom never subscribed to the pastry blender theory because she thought that mashed the fat, the Crisco or the butter, down to the bottom of the bowl. And the only right way to do it was with 2 knives, cutting the fat into the flour and the salt to make the crust. So I've made a pie crust this way every single time. And I was watching her, and she would cut it to the point where it was like fine breadcrumbs. And it takes a while to do this. It's a kind of a menial chore. But she called me over and she said, do you see this? And I looked in the bowl and it looked like fine breadcrumbs. And she said, the trick to a good pie crust is to get it to where you think it needs to be and then go a little further. When she said that, I knew, don't ask me how, but I knew that I'd heard something a little bit more significant than about pie crusts. In life, if you really want to get a great result, you're going to have to go a little bit further than it may seem at first glance. You're going to have to cut a little more. You're going to have to love a little more. Maybe sacrifice a bit further than you thought. And if you don't know that now, life will teach it to you in the days to come. But I've remembered those things. Only the dead have done enough. Yes, they have. Sometimes in life, you've got to go 5 minutes further than you thought. Yeah, you do. And sayings like that, wisdom like that, sinks into us, and we tend to receive it, we let it shape us, and we share it. And it's that very pattern that's in our midst tonight. We are receiving the one who is to come. He is going to shape us, and then he's going to ask for us to share him. And if we do that in the days ahead, receive, let it shape, and then share, we will know a lot of what the Spirit of God is about. So I'm praying that this Christmas, that might happen for you. What is it that you're receiving? How are you letting it shape you? And then are you committed to share it? And what I hope you see is the wisdom of all three, in the sense that if a mom or a dad teaches us something or tries to teach us a value, or maybe they have a saying, and we hear it, but we don't let it shape it, then it's died in process. It hasn't done what it's designed to do. But there's a second step it has to take, in the sense that after it shapes us and we see the wisdom of the value, if we don't then share it, if it doesn't come out of our lips and out of our actions to those that we love, then it's also failed in its mission. It's a Trinitarian kind of process that we're on the cusp of here. We receive, we let it shape, and then we share. And it has this gift to move all the way. And so tonight we're really just at the very beginning. A baby is born that we were asked to receive. My prayer is that you'll let him shape you. Now, I'll give you a warning. It's a little tough. He's going to say some things like, if you want to follow me, you've got to pick up your cross. Okay. He's going to say some things like, the kingdom of God is like a treasure that has been buried in a field, and when somebody finds that, they will give everything they've got. They will sell it all in order to buy that field, because it's the most valuable thing they have. He will say things like, the kingdom of God is like a widow that has 10 coins and she loses one. We have to remember that on the floors of Jesus' day, these were dark, these were rock, these were uneven, these were hewn, they had crevices. The coins also did not have luster like they do in our day. So for a woman to crawl tile by tile, an elderly woman, to look for that one coin is a process. That's what the kingdom of God is like, this baby will say. But these words, these actions that he do will shape us, and then he asked us to send him. There should be people for us to share him with. There should be things that he asked us to do in others' names. There will be people that he asked us to pray for and with. And as we do those things, we are sending him on to those who are to come. When we do all three, it's powerful. If it gets stuck somewhere, it's like Houston traffic, right? It's got the capacity to get somewhere, right? But because everybody's stopped, we're all thwarted. So maybe think too, a little bit about where you are. For some of us, maybe we're hearing the story. Maybe you're not a Christian, but you're hearing the story. And I am so glad you're here, and I'm so glad that you're listening. I wonder what it might look like for you to kind of take the second step and let it shape you. And here's a promise for what it's worth in the new year. But if you'd like, after the service today, the next one isn't until 11 o'clock. There's plenty of time. Come by, shake my hand, and I'd love to give you my personal cell phone number. And if there's a way that I can pray for you, if we can have a cup of coffee in the new year, if we can talk about questions you have about Jesus or church or whatever, trust me, I've heard them all. I would love to. And it's meaningful to me. It shapes me because I can point to faces in this very room tonight that I've had that conversation with, and I've seen them grow in their relationship with Christ, and it has changed them, but watching them, it has also changed me. You see, this process never stops. We receive, we let it shape us, we send. If you're a believer tonight, maybe you've been coming to Christmas Eve for a long time, and maybe this is part of the story that you know well. It's one of your favorite times of year. I'm so glad that you're here. What would it look like for you to continue to share that story with those you love, those you care about, maybe even with those you don't even know? Who's that person that you're praying for who doesn't know Christ, but you're praying for them tonight? And how can God use that prayer and take it forward? If there is a way that we can be of service to you, if there's a way that I can pray for you, find me. I'd love to give you my phone number and pray for you and that person, maybe even tonight. You see, what Jesus is starting here, or what God is starting here, is a series of events. This is the first domino to go down, but others are going to follow. And that this baby is going to grow, he's going to teach, he's going to perform wonders and signs, he's going to call people to follow him, and then ultimately he will be found, he will be hung, and he will die, but the story will continue even further come Easter, and we'll tell you that bit too. But for tonight, maybe we just return our focus to let us receive Jesus and begin to let him shape us. And if that can happen, if he can start not only to become alive in this manger, but alive in our hearts, then we will understand the purposes of our Maker. All I will tell you is this: his coming is good news. The angels sang about it. The early church sang about it. And we too, even tonight, will sing about it as we sing Silent Night, the very night upon which Christ was born. But during that, we will also do something that at this point should sound familiar. We will receive a flame, we will hold it, and then we will pass it on. If we live a life like that, we will understand why he has been sent to us. Pray with me.